Original story based on a witness's testimony. This story was told to me by a man who witnessed it all. I didn't read it on the internet. It didn't come out in the news. And you won't find it by searching on Google Maps. But the place exists. And the people in town still lower their gaze when someone dares to mention it. That man's name is Thomas Reed. And he lives in a small town in Virginia, in the United States, called Asheville. I met him a few years ago, on a road trip I took. I stopped at an old diner by the highway, the kind with half-lit neon signs, and coffee that tastes like hours without sleep. Thomas was the typical small-town man. Cap, plaid shirt, hands full of scars. But there was something strange in his eyes. As if he were always remembering something he'd rather forget. The conversation started off normal. We talked about the weather, the crisis, how the towns are emptying out. When I told him I liked visiting abandoned places, he gave a crooked smile and asked me, "Do you like old churches?" I said yes. Then he lowered his voice, looked out the window as if to make sure no one was listening, and said, "There's one. Up in the hills. That doesn't show up on the new maps anymore. St. William's Chapel. The Chapel of St. William. The Church of Silence. And it isn't abandoned for lack of people. It's empty. Because no one wants to go back inside." That's when he began to tell me everything. According to Thomas, the story began more than 20 years ago, when he was still a young man. Back then, Asheville was a simple, quiet town, with weathered wooden houses, a single supermarket, and an old church on the hill, St. William's Chapel. The chapel had been closed since 1958. A rumor had gone around. A mass that ended badly. Screams. People who ran out. Others who never returned to their homes. No one gave details. They only said that, from that night on, the church bell rang on its own, without anyone touching it. For decades, the chapel remained there, covered in dust, with its doors chained shut. Until one day, a young pastor came to town. His name was Eli Matthews. He was 27. With a good-natured face. A clean, boyish smile. Like someone who truly believes he can fix things. The diocese had sent him with a mission simple on paper, but complicated in reality. Reopen the chapel. Restore the town's faith. Reconnect the people with the church. Thomas remembers that the first time he saw him was at the gas station. Eli was asking how to get to St. William's Chapel, with a paper map in his hand. The attendant only said, "You do know that place is closed, right?" "That's why I'm here," Eli answered, with a smile. "To open it again." No one said anything else to him. In small towns, people know how to keep quiet. Eli went up alone along the dirt road that led to the hill. When he arrived, something surprised him. The main door wasn't chained. It was ajar, as if someone had gone in before him. Inside, the air smelled of damp and old wood. The pews were covered in dust. The altar had a crack down the middle. And on the floor, right in front of the pulpit, there was a Bible open to Psalm 23. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Thomas told me that. When Eli told him that later, he said it as if it were a joke. As if he had thought it was a coincidence. A nice sign. But it wasn't nice. It was a warning. In those first days, the young pastor said about cleaning the church. He would go in the morning and leave at dusk. His clothes stained with dust and cobwebs. The townspeople watched him from afar. But hardly anyone came near. When they did, they only told him things like, "Don't stay at night. Lock the door well. If you hear the bell, don't answer it." Eli laughed. He thought they were small-town superstitions. The first night he decided to sleep inside the chapel was a cold autumn dawn. The wind made the tree branches creak, and the windows shuddered from time to time. Eli lay down on a pew, with a blanket, and his backpack as a pillow. He was asleep, when he heard a chime. Only one. Clear. Metallic. Reverberating in the darkness. He looked at his watch. 3:03 in the morning. He thought maybe it had been the wind moving something. He got up, took a flashlight, and checked the belfry. The rope that rang the bell was broken. Rusty. Impossible to move from below. Thomas says that when he came back inside the chapel, Eli noticed something that hadn't been there before. On the side wall, near the altar, there was a dark stain, as if someone had pressed a hand covered in dried blood, or some thick liquid. And right above that stain, carved into the stone, there was a symbol. A circle with 3 crossed lines in the center. Witchcraft. Eli thought jokingly. A prank by some kids. And he went back to sleep. As the days passed, the routine started to turn strange. Every morning, when Eli opened the chapel door, he found the pews moved. Barely a few centimeters, but aligned, as if someone had sat in them during the night. The candles he left unlit appeared burned halfway down, and the Bible on the altar never closed. It was always open, but not always to the same chapter. One week, it opened to the book of Jeremiah. They cry out to me, but I will not listen to them. Another night, to Revelation. Eli told Thomas about it, who sometimes brought him food as a goodwill gesture. Thomas merely said to him, "Father, that church shouldn't be open." Eli answered with a tired smile, "Faith is not afraid of the dark, Thomas." Almost a month went by before something happened that no one could ignore. Eli decided to call the townspeople to a first mass. He didn't want to start with grand ceremonies. Just a simple gathering. To bless the place, give thanks, and officially open the doors. That Sunday 6 people came. Among them, Thomas. The air inside felt strange. Colder than outside. Even though the sun was beating down hard. The candles were hard to light. As if something blew out the flame every time he tried to light them. Eli began the mass. His voice echoed against the stone walls. Everything was fine. Until the moment of consecration. Just when he raised the bread, the bell rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. No one was in the belfry. Everyone was inside, watching the altar. The light seemed to dim a shade. The air grew thick. And one of the women present, an elderly lady, began to cry for no reason, trembling. Thomas remembers that. In that instant, he felt something very specific. The sensation that someone else was there. Not one person, but several. As if many invisible gazes had turned toward them at the same time. Eli continued the mass. But his voice broke. When it ended, everyone went out almost running. That was the first and last time there was a mass at St. William's Chapel after 1958. No one wanted to return. That same night, Eli heard something more than the bell. He woke at 3:03. As always. But now the bell wasn't alone. After the metallic sound, he heard a woman's voice. Very soft. Praying. The words couldn't be made out. But it sounded like a constant whisper. Without breathing. Repetitive. As if someone were praying the rosary. Over and over. Without stopping. They probably come to pray when I'm not here. He thought at first. But when he stepped into the central aisle with his flashlight, the voice went on. And there was no one. It came from everywhere. From the walls. The ceiling. The floor. And then he saw her for the first time. At the back of the nave. In the half-light. There stood a woman. Wearing a long dress. And a black veil covering her face. Motionless. As if she were floating a few centimeters above the floor. Eli felt his legs tremble. He tried to speak to her. But no words came out. He blinked. And she vanished. In the exact spot where he had seen her. He found a rusted rosary. And a yellowed piece of paper. Folded in 4. When he opened it, there was only one sentence written in blurred ink. Do not break the silence. From that night on, Eli began to change. Thomas noticed that the young pastor spoke less, ate little, and had deep dark circles under his eyes. Sometimes he would stare up at the hill for whole minutes, as if he were listening to something the others couldn't hear. One day, Thomas found him at the store buying candles and oil. Father, are you all right? He asked him. Eli looked at him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I don't think that church is empty, Thomas. All the more reason we should leave it alone, Thomas replied. No. If there's something there, I have to understand what it is. And if it doesn't come from God, I have to cast it out. It was the first time Thomas felt true fear for him. A few days later, Eli went to see the only other priest in the area. An older man named Father Harold. Harold refused to go up the hill. When Eli asked him why, the old man told him what no one had wanted to say. St. William's Chapel was built over an old mass grave. During the war. And a mysterious epidemic. The town buried there those who died without confession. Without sacraments. Without a name. The priest at the time, Father Doyle, tried to cleanse the place with rites, vigils, exorcisms. Instead, something woke up. One night, during a mass in 1958, all the candles went out at the same time. There were screams, pounding on the walls. People swore they saw human-shaped shadows walking among the pews. Several parishioners ran out, and some were never seen again. From then on, the town decided to close the church. Father Doyle sealed a trapdoor beneath the altar with nails and melted wax, and he said a single sentence. According to Harold, if you open what lies below again, I won't be able to help you. Eli listened in silence. Then he said, if there are souls trapped there, they deserve peace. Harold answered him, not everything down there is souls. That same night, Eli searched for the trapdoor. Lifting the altar was difficult, but he found it. A thick piece of wood, marked with the same symbol he had seen on the wall. The circle with the 3 lines. It was sealed with old nails and traces of wax. It had handprints, as if someone had pounded from below, trying to get out. Eli hesitated. He remembered the warnings. He remembered the phrase on the paper. Do not break the silence. And then he decided to break it. He pulled the nails out one by one. The last one gave way with a creak. When he lifted the lid, a cold, damp smell rose from the opening. A smell of earth, iron, and something else. Something he couldn't name. But that made his skin crawl. He went down with a candle in his hand. Below, the air was dense. The stone walls were covered in marks, symbols, and something that looked like melted wax mixed with blood. There were rows of old coffins, open, empty. At the back, an inverted cross hung from the ceiling, and beneath it, a confession chair modified with leather straps. The straps still had dark stains. Then, the bell rang, but not from above. It rang down there, underground, as if it were inside the walls. Eli felt something move behind him. He blew the candle out by accident as he spun around. The darkness was total. That was when he heard the voice. It was no longer just a prayer. It was a woman's voice, very close to his ear, whispering to him, "Do you come to confess, my son?" He felt cold fingers rest on his shoulder. An icy breath brushed his neck. And then, nothing. He woke the next day, lying on the floor by the altar, with the trapdoor sealed again. On his neck, Thomas later said he saw several red marks, as if someone had gripped him hard. From that day on, Asheville stopped being a quiet town. People began hearing the chapel bell every night at 3:03. Even if no one went up there, even if the road was empty, the sound reached the town clearly, cutting through the fog. Eli almost stopped coming down altogether. Thomas was one of the few who still went up from time to time. Worried, one afternoon, he climbed to the church to bring him bread and coffee. He found the door open. Inside, Eli was sitting on the first pew, his gaze lost. "Father," Thomas said, "you have to leave." "I can't leave," Eli replied, without turning. "Not anymore." "Why?" "Because now, they know me by my name." Thomas didn't understand. "Who?" Eli looked at him. And that was when Thomas knew something was very wrong. His eyes looked different, as if he hadn't slept in many days. "When I pray here alone," Eli said. "I don't pray alone." "They answer." "They?" "The voices. Those who died here. Those who are beneath." He paused. "But there's one that isn't like the others. A woman. She doesn't pray. She only repeats my name. Again and again." Thomas wanted to take him away, to get him out of there. But Eli stayed. That was the last time he saw him alive. 3 days later, the town woke in silence. Something felt different. The bell didn't ring. It was the first dawn in weeks when it wasn't heard. At daybreak, some felt relieved. They thought that maybe it was all over. But by mid-morning, a boy ran to the square, shouting that the church door was wide open. Thomas and other men went up to see. They found the candles burned down to the base, the pews in disarray, as if there had been a fight, or an invisible crowd pushing, running. The altar was clean, the Bible closed. There was no trace of Eli. They searched the whole church, the grounds around it, the nearby cemetery. Nothing. Then, one of the men shouted from the confessional, Come see this. Inside the confessional, sitting in the chair, there was something. At first glance, it looked like a statue, a devotional figure. But when they came closer, they saw it was a kind of wax figure, molded with chilling precision. It had Eli's face, the same expression, the same eyes, but the skin was like cold wax, lifeless, where the heart should have been. The chest had a small hole, as if something had been taken out from there. They found no body. They found no blood. They found no sign that he had left. Only that. And on the floor, beside the confessional, there was a folded piece of paper. Thomas picked it up. The sentence was the same as before. Do not break the silence. That was the last time anyone entered St. William's Chapel. Thomas finished his story, staring into his cup of coffee. I didn't know what to say. It was too detailed, too specific, to be a simple invention. I asked if the church was still there. He told me yes, that they had tried to tear it down, but the machines broke down every time they tried. In the end, the diocese decided simply to remove it from the official maps, and act as if it had never existed. And the bell? I asked him. Thomas took a deep breath. Sometimes, when the sky is cloudy, we still hear it. Not every day anymore. Only once in a while. But when it rings, it's always at the same time. At 3:03, I said. He nodded. And if you dare to go up the hill and go inside, he added. They say that if you kneel in the middle of the nave, and whisper your name, a woman's voice repeats it to you, from very close by, as if she were right behind you. He paused, looked me in the eyes, and concluded, I don't intend to find out. I already saw what happened to the one who tried to speak to them. That night, when I returned to my motel, I still had Thomas's voice in my head. Out of curiosity, I took my phone and searched St. William's Chapel, Asheville, Virginia. Nothing came up. But while I was looking through satellite photos of the area, the map froze for a second, and on the screen, right over a small unnamed hill, a tiny church icon appeared. And, for less than a second, the map showed a label. St. William's Chapel. I blinked, and the icon vanished. The map went back to normal. The hill was there, nameless, churchless. And right then, from somewhere outside the motel, in the distance, I could swear I heard a bell. A single chime. Cold. Metallic. I checked the time on my phone. 3:03 a.m.